Hello, I'm Ali Fortescue. This is Sky News' daily podcast. Unfortunately, Niall isn't here today. He's not feeling very well, but he hopes to be back next week. And he is missing a pretty extraordinary day because we've watched the impact of an IT outage unfold all around the world. GPs, hospitals, airlines, banks, supermarkets, broadcasters, not least us here at Sky News, have been grappling to function, really. And it's been called by some the biggest IT outage of all time. We were affected, as I said, and you might have been watching Sky News this morning. Our early morning shows couldn't get on air, and eventually my colleague Anna Jones appeared with one camera and some handwritten scripts. We did our best to keep everyone informed, of course, but we couldn't rely on the systems that we so often do rely on. So we're going to talk to our science editor, Tom Clarke, about what caused this all and the sort of science and technology behind this. Tom, it was just a pretty extraordinary morning. You were in early. Tell us a bit about what was going on here at Sky News.
When I got to the newsroom this morning, they were still in full recovery mode. About 5:30 in the morning, maybe 6, screens started going blue. And that is the global experience of this. In the world of IT, they've even got an acronym for it, BDOS, Blue Screen of Death. And that's exactly what we saw here. Computers you can't reboot, systems that you can't access. And it's caused, as you were just saying there, colossal disruption globally. It's affected Microsoft Windows, and that's the reason why. 70+% of all the world's desktop computers run Microsoft Windows software. And it was an update sent to Microsoft by one of their clients, a company called Crowdstrike. They're not a household name, but they're very big in the world of IT. They provide software security, so ironically systems that protect Microsoft Windows from cyber attacks. And it was an update to what a tiny bit of software, maybe only a few lines of code long, caused a glitch that has taken all those machines offline.
And it's incredible, as you say, that this small company, this small moment has caused such huge ramifications. CrowdStrike CEO George Kurtz, I should say, has spoken to our partner network, NBC.
It's been a long night. We're always trying to stay one step ahead of the adversaries. And in this particular case, our systems are always looking for the latest attacks from these adversaries that are out there. So this content update went out, and as it does, and it's been doing for many, many years, obviously we've got a robust team that's looking at the safety and security and the quality of these updates, and we have to go back and see what happened here. But if there's a negative interaction with the way some of these operating systems work, in this particular case, it was only the Microsoft operating system that was impacted, you'll see a reaction like this. And this is, what we've seen here.
The big question right now, though, how long is it going to take to recover from this? Normally, you can push an update automatically to computers. That's exactly what happened overnight here in the UK and around the world. Australia in the daytime for them, and it's literally rippled around the world. But can they push this fix to those machines if they're shut down with that blue screen of death staring at a poor IT engineer? There is a question about whether that actually has to be manually reconfigured and this update put in. If it's not something that can be automatically pushed, it could take quite a long time to recover. Apparently it's a very simple fix, but if it requires individuals to go in and reboot machines, you can appreciate that is going to add on knock-on impacts and delays. Lots of IT specialists, including those here at Sky, are coming up with very clever ideas to do workarounds, cut-out systems. That's how we got ourselves back on air this morning. But how easy is that to do? Also, if you're a small business or what have you, you haven't got that expertise in-house, again, it might be a real problem for you.
Yeah, it's fascinating, these kind of systems that we take for granted that we come to rely on. We've had to, I guess, function and try and bring people the news without relying on that. Do you think this is the biggest of these sorts of outages that we've ever seen?
I can't imagine any way that it can't be. The biggest outage that we were fearing back I don't know if you remember the Y2K bug. This was the thing that went around in the year 2000 when we clicked over into the year 2000. Was the entire IT system going to collapse? The Millennium Bug, the Y2K bug. It never happened. But since then, we have had, IT outages are routine. You probably noticed your phone provider might go down for a few hours. I don't know if you remember back in 2021, Facebook, they were doing some routine maintenance. They managed to shut down their own systems for about 8 hours. And that included WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, Messenger all collapsed. It was a massive, self-inflicted impact on their systems. But it was confined to that one social media group or one phone company, one airline company, one railway. It's a routine problem. What you've got here, though, is the world's dominant provider of business software, Microsoft Windows, plus more than 70% of desktop computer users all impacted. Given the scale of that and how many more people we have using software in their day-to-day businesses now, I don't think there's any doubt this is going to be the biggest mass disruption that we've ever seen. I think the only thing to be grateful for, or at least thankful for, is Crowdstrike's security software also runs on Mac machines and on Linux machines running Linux software and on bespoke applications like cache machines and things like that. They were not affected by this outage, those other software families. If they had been, this would have been catastrophic, I think, in the damage it would have caused. If it had affected the servers on which the internet runs, for example, you wouldn't have been able to move data around. That would have been really, really significant. So what we're seeing here, even though it's just that sort of front-end software, is causing huge disruptions.
Mission critical systems, these kind of life or death systems, are more resilient.
Again, another thing that's been stress tested here in a way, engineers know this. They know that if you rely on one single system, in any system, whether it's an aircraft or a bridge or a power station or whatever, you're vulnerable to what's called a single point failure. One thing goes wrong, the whole system goes down. So you build in redundancy, either parallel systems or different ways of working around problems. As far as we can tell so far, utility companies, power and water, the air traffic control system, the 999 networks, although there were reports that in Alaska, I think they had a few problems with their 911 system. Certainly in the UK, government, department, computer systems, the NHS hospital infrastructure, this has been largely unaffected by this, as well it should be, because we know that these sorts of risks are there. Any engineer would tell you that. That is something to be thankful for. But I think for the rest of the world, there's just a few large tech companies that make all the software on which society now runs itself can be that vulnerable to effectively a bit of routine maintenance gone very, very slightly wrong is really worrying. And I think there's going to be very big questions asked, obviously, of CrowdStrike. How did they let a buggy piece of software get out there? But also for Microsoft, CrowdStrike is a big client of theirs. Where's their due diligence in terms of their third-party providers? And also, aren't they checking bits of code before they're released across a global network? Is there not a way of ensuring these things work before you release them onto everybody's machines?
And as you say, does this kind of raise questions about the dominance of some of these companies and I guess how dependent and interconnected the whole world is on these systems?
I guess. If anything, they clearly are most of the time extremely reliable. Every time I switch on my machine, it's telling me that automatic updates are being installed. They're not done for no reason. They're little patches to bugs here or there or new things coming on, a little bit of a new product, but often there to keep that system more secure or more safe from vulnerabilities and attacks. But I think what we're seeing here is when they go wrong, it can be spectacular in the impact and how global it is. I think there's going to be a lot of questions asked after this. A lot of questions too about, do software companies like this need to offer a much more resilient system? Is there some way you can have a backup that can run at all times in case of this and not just have that thing to be a very expensive add-on that you offer to people running critical infrastructure?
Can I ask a really potentially quite stupid question? I'm just interested in the moment itself when this happened. How do these software updates actually work? Is it a kind of individual person that presses a button? How does it work?
There'll be a team of engineers who come up with whatever fix there needs to be. I don't know why CrowdStrike had to fix this Falcon sensor, it's called, that looks for incoming threats to your server. But obviously they felt they needed to update
ironic,
it.
Isn't it?
It is hugely ironic, isn't it? This is the thing that's meant to keep you safe, and it's managed to take the whole thing down. From their point on the network, they can send that update out to Microsoft, who can then share it to all those Windows machines. One of the questions in my head is, are the people's computers who weren't affected, are they the ones that didn't install that update and therefore they've escaped? We're still waiting for details about why the impact seems to have been quite patchy. It hasn't impacted all Windows users everywhere in the world. So it's a bit unclear as to how it was not universal on every machine, but it was, and we can see from the impacts that we're hearing about around the world, it was big enough on enough machines to cause some serious problems.
So you've told us a bit about what Crowdstrike have said. Have we heard from Microsoft yet?
We have. Not very much. They're just saying they're aware of an issue affecting a subset of customers. They acknowledge the impact and they're working to restore the services that they provide as quickly as they can. But yeah, this is going to be a bit of teamwork between them and Crowdstrike to figure out how to fix it. But more importantly, how quickly they can get that fix out to everyone.
Let's talk a bit more about this company, Crowdstrike, that many of you, I'm sure, won't have heard of until today, with another Tom, our data and forensics correspondent, Tom Cheshire. So, Tom, tell us, firstly, who are Crowdstrike?
They're probably second biggest by market capitalisation. They're in the Fortune 500 ahead of today. We'll see what effect it has after that. And they also supply a lot of Fortune 500 companies. So, really big companies. They say 62 of the top 100 companies in America. So that sort of shows just how big they are, how embedded they are in every business, really. And
tell me a bit about how they've grown. What are they worth? You've sort of touched on this.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of tech companies, it's not actually that old. It's only 2011 founded, now somewhere around sort of 80. This has been changing today, but before today, $83 billion worth in market capitalization. So they are really, really big. And also they might ring a bell. They were the firm that was investigating Russian hackers in 2015-16 for the US Democratic National Committee. So they got a bit of notoriety through that. And it also kind of speaks to what cybersecurity involves in the modern world. It's not just sort of looking for viruses or spam or things like that. It's, you've got nation states acting, things like that. So that's when, a lot of people woke up with this blue screen of death. Everyone's thinking, is this a cyber attack? Is this something really serious? Luckily, it wasn't that, and they were quick to point that out. But yeah, they run the whole sort of gamut of these things.
And we've heard from their CEO, is that kind of part of damage limitation?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't massively convincing to start with. He started on X, formerly Twitter, and there was no hint of an apology. It was quite useful in terms of saying this isn't a cyber incident. He spoke of a defect, which I think everyone would agree with is quite a defect. But it's interesting, the idea it's a single piece of content that's caused all of that. He did apologise. He said, I'm sorry, deeply sorry, but it wasn't massively contrite. And a lot of it was presented as, this is just stuff that happens. And maybe some of it's the corporate speak. He was saying, we're not going to relent until we get every customer back to where they were, and we continue to protect them and keep the bad guys out of their systems. I mean, it's the good guys in the system that have done the damage here. And just in terms of we're not going to relent until we get every customer back. But they have so many customers like we've been speaking about. We've suffered from this here at Sky. We've got thousands of computers. And our engineering team, having spoken to them today, they're going around taking out that tiny snippet of code that ruined everything today. And they're having to do that one by one. So that's going to take a time. There's a backlog already, and that's not going to clear for quite a long time, I don't think.
Okay, Tom Cheshire, fascinating stuff. Thanks so much. That's all for this episode, but you can, of course, find more of our analysis on skynews.com. But for now, thanks very much for listening.